Well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever it is. Let's make it good. It should be Friday if you're listening to this when it was assigned. This is Show What You Know Friday. So I'm going to go through some problems and then you will have the opportunity to duplicate that. This will be due next Friday. Hard due date. I want you to get it done. There is no Delta assignment with this particular deal. This is just a review of the things that we've been doing for the last month, but I am going to go through it with you, and I'm going to try and do it without a calculator and with a calculator. So let's talk our way through this, and here we go. All right, so we're going to start off working with quads or parabolas, and we're just going to take a look at what we have. We have x squared minus 7x plus 6. That is a parabola, and it opens upward. So looking around, I see it as a minimum or a maximum. So it's going to be a minimum. I'm just going to circle that so I don't forget that, because that would be 1 point. If I forget to circle it, I don't get that point. And we also have the wonderful world of trying to graph this. And once again, I'm not going to use my calculator. So I am going to think about things about the axis of symmetry. And once again, you have your equation for your axis of symmetry is x equals negative b over 2a. And we know that this is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, right? Which means that for this, that gives us a negative from the equation. And my b is equal to 7, so negative 7, so negative 7. That's going to be over 2 times 1. And that is going to equal 7 over 2, which is going to be 3.5. First thing I'm going to do is go out here to 3.5. Hey, look at those nice sharp x and y axis. I'm going to put a little dotted line down 3.5. Right, x equals 3.5, and it is a positive 3.5 because I got that negative thing going on. All right, and let's see. Then I want to go probably 3 points in either direction from that. So I'm going to do 0, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to 3.5, 4, 5, and 6. I goofed. I'll try and fix that for yours, but I goofed on mine. All right, so things that I know how to do. Watch this. If I put in 0 in here, I'm going to get 6. Okay, so that means I have 0, 6, 3, 6. Now, on the one that we're going to be doing, the graph is going to be optional, but you are going to need to fill out the table, and you're going to need to answer all the questions about it. So if you want to do the graph, great. If you don't want to do the graph, because I know it's hard if you have to, if you're trying to send it in to me, all right? But we can work our way through that. And if that is going to be there, doesn't look like I have it, all right? And then I can just start plugging in some numbers in that. So if I put in 1, and I'll do it down here. I do f of 1. Once again, I'm doing this without a calculator. That would equal 1 squared minus 7 times 1 plus 6. And 1 squared is 1 minus 7 plus 6. That's going to give me a 0. So I have a 0 here. And if I go the other way, that means I should have a 0 right there at 6. And a 0 right there. Okay. And then I can do 2. That's going to give me 2 squared minus 7 times 2 plus 6. And that's going to give me negative 4. So negative 4. And I can go to the other side and go to negative 4. Negative 4. Negative 4. And if I put in 3, I'm going to get 3 squared minus 7 times 3. Plus 6, and that's going to give me 9 minus 21 plus 6. That's going to give me a negative 6. And I'm going to do a little cheat here. I need to find that axis of symmetry, so I get a negative 6 here and a negative 6 here. And if you remember, when we've done these things where we've done the 0.5, it's usually just the same distance down, and that's going to be at negative 6.25. Okay, you could plug it in there if you wanted to, but that should be what you get. So I'm just going to kind of put it there, and I'm going to draw my parabola. Whoa, that's on a little bit on the far out. That should be right there, shouldn't it? All right, and up and there. Okay, so that's a boo-boo. All right, but we caught it. And we want to make sure, and when you're drawing these things, you don't want to go like straight up on either one. That would be a deduction as well. All right, so now we got all kinds of good stuff here. We filled out our table. We know it's a minimum. It says state the coordinates of the turning point, and that's the vertex. Okay, and so that's going to be at 3.5, comma, negative 6.25. Okay, and that is our vertex. This is our axis, and this is our vertex. All right. And then it says, what is the range of your quadratic? Your range is a y value. And we take a look at the lowest y value. And it's going to be bigger than that since it's opening up. So it's going to be greater than or equal to. And that's just going to be right there, that coordinate for your vertex, negative 6.25. And then it asks what the zeros are, and you can see the zeros we have up here are here and here. And when you do the zeros, this is what this is supposed to see here. It's hard to read it, but make sure you use the right types of brackets. And for this one, our zeros are going to be x equals squirrely bracket. Ooh, I made a nice one. And I have 1, comma 6 and another squirrely bracket. All right, working our way through this. So now it says, over what interval is the function negative? Okay, so you're thinking that this is your output is going to be negative. All right, so that means that it's going to be down here, negative y. So that's anything that's down below here. And you can see that that goes from right here to right here. So it goes from one root to the other. So you're basically just going to take these roots and bring them down. And you're going to do a 1 and a 6. And you put an X in the middle because when they're asking about the outputs, you have to tell them how does it get there from the inputs. So that's why there's an X there. Now, it says that it's negative. That means that it's not 0 and it's not positive. So you're going to use a less than and a less than there. And if you decided to use the interval notation, it would be a parenthesis, 1, comma, 6, end parenthesis. Okay, you can't list all the numbers where it's negative. You can't like say it's from 2, 3, 4, 5. You can't because you'd have to list every number. Okay. Now for increasing is when it goes up from left to right. Decreasing would be down from left to right. Okay, so we're looking at here. Where does it go up from left to right? So it's going down, 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 down. It changes right there at the vertex and starts going up, 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 up. So you're going to take that x coordinate of the vertex. So go back up here in your table, right there at 3.5. So you're going to have x is greater than, not equal to, 3.5. And then you need the average rate of change, okay, from 0 to 8. Average rate of change is another word for slope. All right, so if you have your slope, you're going to put this on the bottom. So these are your x's. So x's go on the bottom. So remember, it's change in y over change in x. So I'm going to have 0 minus 8. And I already know what the 0 is. The 0 is up here, and that's at 6. 6 minus, I don't have the 8. So let's do that. We're going to do 8. F of 8 technically equals 8 squared minus 7 times 8 plus 6. And if you do that math magic, you're going to get 64 plus 6, that's 70, minus 56, so that's going to be 14. Now, I can't graph that, but I don't need to graph it. I don't want to really care about the graph. I just want to find the slope. And really what we're finding, if we graphed it, if you did graph it, it would look, we're looking for the slope of that line right there. Okay, from here to there, we want that slope. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're figuring out. So that's going to give me a 14. Okay, and that gives me negative 8 over negative 8, and that equals positive 1. Once again, it goes up from left to right, so it winds up being a positive 1. That's the work you need to show me when we're doing this. That's the average rate of change. Now, we could have done this using our calculator and gotten all kinds of good stuff. All right, and if you looked at your calculator, these are the things that you would find. All right, first of all, I plugged it in and I got my roots by doing the menu and then 4 and then 1 for zeros. And then the vertex is the minimum. Okay, so we got that and it checked out. I can also get that by looking at my table. There's my one root, and I slide down for my other root. And I also put in, so you can see it, how to get that 14 once again. If you got the calculator in there, you just use your table. We have 0, 6, and we have 8, 14. All right, and that's where we get our slope from for that last problem. So all this can be done with the calculator a lot more easily than what I just did it, but you should be able to get her done. Okay, so that's the first page. All right, second page. Now once again, you're following instructions here. All right, and it says find the roots by factoring. Now, if you wanted to use the quadratic formula on this, or you wanted to use completing the square, I'm okay with that. However, down here, the next two problems, you must use the process that they describe, okay? So for this one, we are looking at it, and this is something we were just starting before you went on hiatus, all right, to homeschool, and it's story time. And the story here, this starts my story, and this tells me that the signs are different. So a plus and a minus, and this tells me the bigger one's a minus. Okay, so I need the factors of negative 28 that add to negative 12. Signs are different, bigger one's negative. So I got my two sets of parentheses. First thing I really should have looked at here, is there a GCF? No, there's not. Okay, so I don't have to worry about that. X plus minus. Okay, and we're finding roots. That means I have to do that equals 0. We're not going to stop when we're factoring. We're going to stop when we get to the roots thing. So I got to t-chart it. So my factors of 28, we would have 1 and negative 28, 2 and negative 14, 3 doesn't go into 28, 4 goes into 28 with a negative 7, 5 doesn't go into 28, 6 doesn't go into 28, then we're back to the 7 going the other way. So that means we're going to add these together. This gives me negative 27, negative 12, negative 3. There's my winner. So I do a plus 2 and a minus 14. Be very careful about that. It's a really common mistake to just put a 12 there. Or the really one that makes me sad is when somebody just puts a 12 here and a 28 there. That's not what's happening. We're finding out where it crosses the x-axis. So I t-chart. X plus 2 equals 0. Move the 2 over, I get x equals negative 2. And then I have x minus 14 equals 0. So then I get x equals 14. So my roots are x equals negative 2, 14. That's how we do this by factoring, okay? Now, you can use your calculator on this, and it's kind of hard to see it, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. Now, if you put this in your calculator and define the factors of 28, you do negative 28 divided by x. That would give you this row here, okay? And then you do negative 28 divided by x plus x. So this would be, gives you the factors, and this would give you the sum, all right? So if you look at it, you can see that 1 and negative 28 gives me negative 27. 2 and negative 14 gives me the 12. That's the one that we decided to use. And there's my 4 and 7 for the negative 3. Okay, so that's a way to do it using your calculator. A little bit, it makes it a little bit more foolproof. And you can also check your work in your calculator. I think I did that. All right. And then if you stuff this into your calculator to find it, you would see that, hey, there's our root of negative 2, but you can't see the 14. So you'd have to change your picture. And then you could go to the table if you wanted to and keep looking at it until you find that. And it's at 14, or you could increase your picture. Notice what I chose for my picture. I took that 28 and I made that my window because I kind of thought, well, if it's going to go to 28, maybe it shouldn't go out past that. And you can see those two numbers there. Okay. So this would be ways to check it right there. That's negative 2 and that's positive 14. Okay. Once again, lots of different ways of doing this using your calculator. Use your calculator to your friend, but you can't just put it in your calculator and write down the answers. Okay. You got to show me some factoring. All right. Now, next one says we're going to do it by completing the square. This is a process that I'm thinking some of you may struggle with because you didn't get a lot of practice at it. But here's what we do. When you complete the square, you change it to 0 and you move the 63 over. So I'm going to add 63 to both sides. Okay. So you get 63 equals x squared plus 18x. Okay, so now you take 18, your b, and you divide it by 2, and that gives you 9. And then 9 squared equals 81. So now you add 81 to both sides. 81 plus 81. This is a perfect square, okay? So that's going to be x, signs are the same, both are plus 9, not 81, quantity squared. And that equals, if you take 3 and 1, you get a 4, and 6 and 8, you get 14, 144. And I think some of you will recognize that as a perfect square. Notice how down here it says round your answer to the nearest hundredth. Up here it didn't, so you should get a nice number, okay? And some of you may have said, hey, I can factor that. Well, yeah, you could have, but that wasn't what it asked you to do. So if you factored that, it would be wrong. Okay, square root, and that gives me an x plus 9 on this side. And then remember, when you take your square root, you have a positive and a negative. In this case, it's going to be a 12. So then you have, you subtract your 9 over. So you're going to get 12 minus 9 is going to give me a 3. And then you have negative 12 minus 9. And that's going to give me a negative 21. So my roots for the second one are x equals, squirrely bracket, 3 and negative 21. Once again, you could check that using your calculator. All right. Now, quadratic equation. Many of you also had some struggles with this. There is a worksheet. Actually, I will attach that to the assignment so you can pull that up if you want it. One of the things I saw a lot of was people getting their A's, B's, and C's confused, okay? The formula's there. I will have that on the paper that you got to do as well. So we identify our A is equal to 2, our B is equal to 9, our C is equal to negative 23, and we're going to substitute it into our equation. You must show this substitution. So I get x equals negative 9 plus minus, don't lose the plus minus, big square root, 9 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 23 all over 2 times 2. Okay, now the first step that you have here is to plug in this number here into your calculator. 9 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 23. Don't plug the whole thing into your calculator. Okay, they want an intermediate step here. All right, so if we do that, we're going to get negative 9 plus or minus square root, it was kind of a little tight there, but square root of 9 squared minus 4 times 23 times 9. I got it right here. Okay. And, well, on number 3, I did do all the work out for you in the calculator to show you the 18 divided by 2, squaring it, adding it. Anyway. All right. So here's my 9 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 23, and that gives me 265. 265 over 4. Okay. Now that would be the exact answer. Okay, that's x equals. But it says round to the nearest hundredth, so I need to put it in my calculator with a plus sign and then with a minus sign, and that's going to give me my 2 roots rounded to the nearest hundredth, which is 2 decimal places. All right, and when I do that, this is what it looks like. Put it into my calculator, and I get negative 9, don't lose that negative, plus 2, square root of 265, so I get 1.819, blah, blah, blah. So 1.82. And then negative 6.32, negative 6, comma, 0.32, squirrely bracket. Okay. So that's that. Alrighty. So now we have a word problem. So you see we're covering everything we did in the entire last unit, basically on this worksheet, plus a little bit from this new unit. All right. Rectangular patio. All right. Draw a picture. Doesn't have to be a good picture. And it says the length is more than the width. Whatever they say second is x. So I get x and x plus 5. Now what do they do? Okay, they're going to increase this by 8. So we're going to do this and do plus 8, building a bigger garden because we want a bigger garden. And that's going to give me x plus 13. And it says the width is decreased by 4. So this is coming over x minus 4. And the new garden has an area of 168 square feet. Why we do this, don't know. We're doing it. So to find this, we know that length times width equals area. So x plus 13 times x minus 4 equals 168. Now you can use the box method on this or double distribute or the sum product thing, and it would give you x squared plus 9x minus 52 equals 168. Set it equal to 0 by subtracting the 168. And that gives me x squared plus 9x minus 220 equals 0. Now I need the factors of 220 that have a difference of 9. And once again, I could use that process in the calculator to figure that out. But if I did it, I would find out that I get x plus something. I had it out here a minute ago. And, oh, of course it's not handy. Why would it be handy? All right. It is x plus 20 and x minus 11 equals 0. Yep, that works. Sorry about that. T-chart, x plus 20 equals 0, x minus 11 equals 0, so x equals negative 20, which is impossible, and you have to write reject, and then x equals 11. And that gives me a smiley, but I'm not done. So then I say x equals 11, and then x plus 5 equals, let's see, that's 11 plus 5, 16. Okay? Now, sometimes you're sitting there going, well, if I check this, I got to make sure it works. And if you multiply 11 times 16, it's not 168. But that's okay, because that's the size of the new garden. This is the old garden. Okay? And actually, it's a little bit smaller, which is weird. But anyway, so that's that. All right. And then, okay, 2 things to go. We have a line and a parabola. We want to find out where they meet. So the first thing I need to do is rearrange this. Okay, and we're doing it algebraically. So I need to subtract the 3 over. And that gives me 3y equals 3x minus 3. Okay, and then I divide by 3. I get y equals x minus 1. All right, that means I'm going to take this expression and plug it in for that y. Now I do that, I get x minus 1 equals x squared minus 6x plus 5. I set it equal to 0 by subtracting x from both sides and adding 1 to both sides. 0 equals x squared minus 7x plus 6. Now I need to factor, and it's story time. Signs are the same, both are minus. X minus, x minus. The factors of 6 that add up to 7 are going to be 6 and 1, or 1 and 6. T-chart. And that's going to give me x equals 6 when I do the sign flip, and x equals 1. And some people will put a smiley face on and move on, but you're not done. I need to find out what my y's are, and you might as well use this equation here. So if I subtract 1 from my x, I wind up with 6 comma 5. And if I subtract 1 from my x here, I wind up with something. 1 comma 0. All right. That's that. So those are my 2 points of intersection. So if I'm graphing it, it's going to look something like this. I'll have my smiley, and it would be whoosh. Something like that. And those are the 2 points there. 1, 0, 6, 5. All right. Simplifying a couple of radicals. And once again, I'm going to do it by doing prime factorization. I got some big, nasty, ugly numbers here. I don't think I wrote down all my work on the calculator. So, well, here we go. Let's see how it works out. So, whenever I do this, I remember my prime numbers are 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 19, and we'll go 23. I don't think we'll need that big, but we'll see what happens. So first thing I do, I start with the smallest one. And this is the way I always do it. And once again, you can find a perfect square that goes into it. Good for you, but I saw lots of mistakes on people that tried that on paper and pencil one. All right, so I'm going to do a 2, and that's going to be 2 times 81. Okay, and somebody said, well, 81's a perfect square. Yes, it is. I'm just going to do it my way, and I'll wind up with the same answer that you do, but you could just do 9 and 9 and move out from there, but that's okay. So that's going to be 3 and 27, which is 3 and 9, which is 3 and 3. Okay, so I broke it down into prime factors. I circle the pairs, 3 and 3, and I have to take care of that one on the outside too. So I'm going to do 13 times 3 times 3, and this is the only thing that's left over, square root of 2. And if you type this in your calculator, this would be 13 times 9, and that equals 117 square root of 2. Now, if you wanted to check that, you could do something like this just to make sure you're right, because this is what it needs to look like. I don't want to know this decimal, but I want to be able to think about it here. Where's going on here? I want to do 1 and 1. And if I do 13 second square root 162, that's my target of 165.46. And then I do 117, control square root 2, enter. And hey, look at that, exact same number on my calculator. So I have done well. So that gives me a smiley. All right. So, and I think when I've talked to you about this, I've said, you know what? You really need to make sure that you use your calculator on these. So I'm going to use my calculator on this because I'm tired right now. And I'm going to divide by 2. So 972 divided by 2, enter. And that gives me 486. And that's divisible by 2, so I just do divide 2 again. And that gives me 243. So 2 and 243. And many of you know that 243 is not divisible by 2. So I divide by 3. And that gives me 81. Hey, there's a number I know about. 81. And when you're doing these a lot, it happens, you'll see this all the time. 3 and 27, so you get good at this factoring. And that's 9, and then 3 and 3. Okay, so I bring down the 1/6. Okay, I have 2 2s, so I can bring out a 2, circle the 2s. I have a 3, so I can bring out a 3. I have another 3, so I can bring out a 3. And then I have this one left over, square root of 3. Okay, so then if you do 1/6, 1 divided by 6, times 2 times 3 times 3, you wind up with 3. 3 square root of 3. That's all there is to it. Okay, so that's what you do there. You know, if you wanted to think about what this is going on here, well, if you do 3 times 3, it's 9, times 2 is 18. So you'd have 18 divided by 6, and that does give you 3. If you left it like this, that would give me a sad face, okay? Because that's not in simplest form. It says that we're going to simplify the radicals. We want them in simplest form. Okay, so now we have another nasty one here, 3,468. Oh, everybody knows how to factor that. So 3,468 divided by 2, enter. That would be 1734. So we have 2 and 1734. Still divisible by 2, divided by 2, and enter. 867. Oh, it's a 2 and an 867. 67, not 77. Well, let's see if that's divisible by 3. I'm pretty sure it is. You know, there's a trick for divisible by 3. If you add up the digits and the sum is divisible by 3, then the number is divisible by 3. And if you add up those digits, it's 21, and 21 is divisible by 3, so that's going to work. So that's 3 and 289. Okay, so 289. I know something special about 289 that you don't. Well, maybe you do. I shouldn't say that. And 289 is a special number. Now, it's not going to be divisible by 3. It's not going to be divisible by 5 or 7 or 11 or 13, but it is divisible by 17. So if you take the square root, Control square root, second answer, enter, square root of 289 is 17. So this would be 17 times 17. That's kind of a tough thing to remember, but you got to keep going until you get there. So you look for the factors of 289. In fact, I'm not sure whether this calculator is going to do this. Let me just take a quick look. We go to numbers, and it says, 3 factors. So if you hit 3 and you hit 289, hit enter, it tells you that it's 17 squared. So I forgot about this. See what happens when you sit there with a calculator long enough. So if we go back and we do that 3, 4, 6, 8, so I do menu, 2, 3, and then 3, 4, 6, 8, it tells me it's 2 squared, 3, 17 squared. All right, which is what I have, because I have 2 2s, 2 17s, and a 3. All right, so once again, that was menu, and then number, and then 3 factor, and it'll give you that prime factorization. Totally forgot about that. See, stick around long enough, you might learn something with me. Not all the time, but. So we circled our stuff up, and we get a 1/2 because we bring that over, and a 2 because we bring that out, and a 17 because of that, and stays in the house, square root of 3. So final answer is 17 square root of 3. Okay, so that's the whole deal. All right, and if you watch this to the end and you're listening carefully, then you'll know if you write the word purple at the end of this, that you'll get an extra point on this, like a bonus point. That means that you were listening the entire time. But that's the lesson for today. And this, you'll have something very similar to this to work on, and it will be due a week from today. Thank you, and have a great weekend.